Welcome to the Autism Mom and Travel Podcast, a podcast about autism and everything in between. Stay tuned as we welcome our host, Gracia Hines.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Autism Mom and Travel Podcast. Today's episode is titled, Are Parents with Mental Health Issues Allowed to Raise Kids with Special Needs? We are discussing another article today, and this happened in September of 2017. So, the title of the article is Monster Mom Burned Son 4 to Death in the Bathtub Because She Thought He Was a Cannibal. So neighbors of 23-year-old mother, Amelia DiStasio, and her 4-year-old son, Antonio, who had autism, repeatedly heard banging noises and the young boy saying, "Please, mommy, stop. I won't do it again." The next day, they noticed smoke coming out of their apartment. Around 7:30 in the morning, the Milwaukee Fire Department responded to the apartment complex and found Antonio dead in his mother's bathtub, with his hands tied behind his back with several belts and a garbage bag over his head. The complaint said the majority of his body was burned. Police says that Antonio was burned with an unknown accelerant and a pet guinea pig was found drowned in its cage next to the tub. There was, however, a bottle of canola cooking oil on the bathroom sink. The apartment smoke detector was removed and placed in the water. An autopsy of little Antonio's body revealed he had significant charring to his skin and thermal injuries to the majority of his body. A witness said she saw a woman jump out of the window of the apartment and said she looked frazzled. Amelia was arrested later that same day after an officer saw her walking down the street. In her purse, a handwritten note with a woman's name and telephone number was found. When police called that number, they talked to a couple who had met Amelia on the bus that day and said she was crying. They asked if she needed a pastor to talk to, and she said, "I did something really bad." Police also found searches in her phone for how do cannibals die and how to kill a cannibal. These searches were made the day she allegedly killed her son. She also was on a message board dedicated to an online game called Horror Survival Game, where players fight cannibals. In the message board, it was recommended to kill cannibals with fire and how cannibals like to bathe in oil. Ralph DiStasio, the suspect's father and boy's grandfather, said Amelia had suffered mental health problems. He told Fox 6 it's impossible to describe it. He also said, and I quote, "I got to hope that Antonio is in heaven, and I got to pray that Amelia gets help if she needs help, and I believe she does." She's been charged with first-degree intentional homicide and faces life in prison if convicted. So, as I was reading the article, I read that the grandfather said she suffered from mental illness. So the family was aware that she suffered from mental illness, yet nobody removed the child from her care, which is already a red flag. My question is, if she had mental illness, why was she allowed to raise the child? How was she trusted with this child without supervision? I'm just asking for a friend. My friend wants to know. Because quiet as it's kept, she had a mental illness. They were aware of it, yet they let her live with this child alone with no supervision. That's like waiting on something to happen that you know is going to happen. But that's my opinion. Children crave love. Children crave affection and attention. They crave stability and guidance. And if you have an untreated mental illness, that can interfere with your ability to provide those things for that child. despite of your best efforts. It's not that you're not making efforts to provide those things, but your mental illness can interfere with it. Mental illness does have an impact on your ability to be a parent. If you're not emotionally available to your child, especially young children, you're going to miss their cues that say, hey, I need you to be my mom right now. Your own suffering may prevent you from responding to your child's needs in a healthy and productive way. You're not doing it on purpose. That's just the way it is. And especially untreated mental illness. Untreated mental illness is strongly associated with general family confusion, marital difficulties, and a chaotic home environment. It just is. And it presents an additional risk for your children's well-being. You're exposing your child to stressful circumstances over which they have little control, and they may still feel responsible for anything that happens in their household. What this does then, it can undermine the child's sense of social competence, and it can contribute to difficulties in coping with stressful situations. So what impact would an untreated parental mental illness have on a child? Hey, special family, to listen to the rest of this podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or AnchorFM.com. Thank you so much for your support, and stay tuned for the next episode.